Maybe 15,000 people, 25 pubs in the town centre. And growing up, it was fun. I was a good kid, I really was, but I had a lot of energy. And that energy got me in trouble.
I spent more time in the headmaster's office when he was at school than probably the headmaster did. I was always getting called in. Michael had done this, Michael had done that. But 9 times out of 10, it was someone else had started something. Michael finished it.
I used to get in a lot of trouble at school, and that was mainly for just being, I always had something to say. Always had to get the last word.
He was lippy, he could reduce people to tears, either with his fists or with his mouth. He got into martial arts when he was about 7.
I never really had an interest in studying or schoolwork at that time. And the teacher would be like, "Why didn't you do your homework?" And I'm like, "Sorry, sir, I went to Nottingham last night to do jiu-jitsu." And he was like, "Don't lie to me, Bisping. No one goes to Nottingham to do a jiu-jitsu class." But we did, my dad did, because he recognised I had ability and wanted to get me the best training possible.
I used to have to take him all over the country to competitions. He was competing as a 13-year-old. He'd been the under-13s, he'd been the under-14s, he'd been the under-16s, and normally get like the silver medal in the adult. Yes, that's if he didn't win it. But then he got to about 16 and he discovered there's other things in life for a 16-year-old boy to do. Left school and then did a series of dead-end jobs. Labouring, Tyler, you name it, he did it.
I was working at a factory in Clitheroe, and Rebecca was in the offices, and I started spotting her around on a night out here and there, so I'd go off and say hi and, give up my best cheesy chat-up lines.
He was confident, funny. He just instantly made me a very happy person. We knew we were meant to be together. We moved in, I got pregnant with Callum.
And then, of course, Callum was quickly followed by Ellie, and we had 2 children. That was a massive thing for me. It's not just about you anymore. You're trying to provide for a family and trying to give them the best life you can, and working minimum wage wasn't going to get that done.
He wanted to be able to provide a really nice life for them, and he just couldn't at that time, and it was frustrating for him.
I actually tracked down my old jiu-jitsu coach, a guy called Paul Davies. When I was a kid, this guy always said I could go on and be something special. And he said to me, "Michael, since you've been away, the UFC has exploded." He said, "You've got what it takes to go on to be world champion." He said, "You'll make tons of money."
He asked me my opinion, and I said, it's not down to me. I said, it's down to, and I pointed to his now wife. She's the one that's working. You're not going to earn a lot. I said, "Why do you want to do it?" And he said, "Well, I don't want to be sitting on the same settee in 10 years' time thinking, what if?"
I knew I could do this. I knew I could fight. Combine that with my martial arts, combine that with my temperament, combine that with my competitiveness. Anything I'm doing, I have to win. I started training and applying myself. I had to fight though. Training is one thing, but I had to make some money. I started booking fights, and my first fight, I remember it was at an event in Newcastle. The fight went my way, I knocked him out in about 30 seconds. And my next fight was a few weeks later, boom, again, 30-second knockout, and then again, and again.
In his early pro fights, he was unstoppable. There didn't seem to be anybody in Europe that could touch him.
Oh, and it looks like Bisping had a time drop.
He was fast, aggressive, and he could hit.
This is very close. Bisping with a good knee, and that's it.
I became the Cage Rage World Champion. I got the Cage Warriors World Belt. I was tearing through the UK scene. I was winning fight after fight, and all the while my skill set was getting better.
He was just too ferocious for them, and he overwhelmed people, and they either ended up curling up in a ball and cowering, or they were unconscious.
Again, another good right hander. Is it over? It's finished. Mike Bisping has got a knockout.
I first heard about Michael early on in his career. He went 10-0 before he even smelt the UFC.
Great win from Mike Bisping. 10 fights, 10 wins, 10 stoppages.
The whole of the UK MMA scene was really kind of bubbling about him. I think by then we knew we had something a little bit special. He was literally jumping from one promotion to the other, which is why he collected so many belts. He wasn't satisfied just to be the Cage Rage champ, just to be the Cage Warriors champ. Mike wanted to stay busy. He wanted to win everything. He was trying to prove a point.
Number 1,
Pretty much any title that there was to have in England, I owned at that time. So there wasn't much more I could do domestically. The Ultimate Fighter came about, and I remember watching it thinking, man, you know, this is cool and I would love to be on there. Season 3, they were having open auditions in the UK. I went there to the auditions and, you know, all the other light heavyweights there, anyone that was decent, I'd beaten them all. I'd beaten them all inside the first round.
When Mike signed up for TUF, obviously UK MMA was super excited. You know, this was what we were waiting for. We wanted one of our guys to go over there and prove to the Americans that we could hang with them.
I've never been to America before in my life, and here I am on a reality TV show in Las Vegas with 16 other fighters living in the house. Come on, that's a good time to me.
My name's Mike the Count Bisping. I've fought halfway across the world for this. There's one thing I've always been good at, and that's been fighting. I feel I've got what it takes to make a real living out of this, you know, a real career.
First time I met Michael Bisping was getting ready for that season of The Ultimate Fighter, season 3. And I liked him. I liked his personality. I liked his fighting style.
Stop right there, that's it.
I was into Bisping right away.
Michael just kind of stepped in there and dominated it.
Stop right there.
Right out the gate, we figured we were going to have a guy who was probably going to be a champion.
It's now come down to this one defining moment to see who will be crowned the Ultimate Fighter and go on to receive a 6-figure contract with the UFC.
When the fight was just about to start, I was in the octagon. I remember looking up at the lights, and I nearly fainted. I was so nervous because so much was resting on this. My coach at the time said, Michael, just take a deep breath, deep breath. So I started taking deep breaths, and I started to relax. And then he said to me, he said, Michael, remember, every single piece of training you've done has come down to this moment. And then that sent me off the deep end again. I'm like, not the correct advice to give me right now.
Oh, big knee. How is Haynes still standing? Oh, Haynes is in trouble. It's all over. Michael Bisping. It's the Ultimate Fighter.
I was so pleased for him. That's all he wanted, was getting the UFC. He wasn't looking beyond that, you know.
To be here standing tonight as the champion is just an absolute dream come true. I don't know what else to say.
It was definitely the start of something big when Michael won the season, because all of a sudden the US would take us seriously.
You win the 6-figure contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
UK MMA was kind of validated on the international stage. It had arrived because of Michael Bisping's success.
Hey, thanks, Dennis. Thank you, buddy.
Even though I'd won the Ultimate Fighter, the prize is a contract. You earn money, but you have to fight to earn the money. I'd filmed The Ultimate Fighter in June, and then my next fight wasn't scheduled until December. So again, we were still flat broke at this point. First fight, UFC 66. I went out there, the fight was great. Knocked him out first round.